To introduce our moderator, I'd like to introduce to you an old friend of mine, Barry Steelman. Barry is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. He was vice president of his alumni class for 5 years. Very distinguished attorney in the Baltimore area, active in many charitable activities, and of most renown, perhaps, he was my roommate on the USS Henderson about 40 years ago. So please welcome Barry Steelman.
Thank you, Jim. That tour in Vietnam could be a panel of itself about what we had our fun overseas. But our next moderator today, Vice Admiral Mel Williams, Jr., grew up in a military family. He is the son of a Navy Master Chief who served the Navy from 1951 until his son's graduation from the United States Naval Academy in 1978. Upon his graduation from the Academy, Admiral Williams became a nuclear-trained submariner. During his 32 years in the Navy, he had 4 operational commands, including the commander of the U.S. Second Fleet, where he had 130 ships and over 90,000 sailors and Marines under his command. Commander of Submarine Group 9, which included 12 submarines, commander of Submarine Squadron 4, and is commanding officer of the USS Nebraska, SSBN 739. Upon leaving the Navy in 2010, he transitioned, which this panel is about today, into the civilian world to become the Associate Deputy Secretary of Energy for the United States, appointed by President Obama. He is currently the Associate Provost for the Military and Veterans Affairs at the George Washington University here in the District of Columbia. He is the recipient of many Navy and Joint Service medals and ribbons. He and his wife, Donna, are residents of the D.C. area. I am honored to present you Vice Admiral Mel Williams.
Thank you, Barry, and good morning, everyone. I know the blood sugar may be a little low, but we're almost there for the break, so please hang in there. We have quite the distinguished panel here to share with you today. It's a privilege for me to be a part of this. The focus is on leadership, but our panel members will have the opportunity to share their experiences in the areas of leadership, ethics, character, and service, having served in our military and having joined the private sector, and each of them have very successful careers. So it's an opportunity for us to learn their leadership perspective, how they made their transition, such that all of you all in the room could perhaps capture a nugget or two that might help you in the future. So thank you for being a part of this. I'd like to introduce our panel members. First, we'll start on the end there with Dr. Jack London. And I share with you that Dr. Jack London is a renowned person of leadership and character. He's received many awards throughout his career. He's a graduate of the Naval Academy and the Naval Postgraduate School, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Naval Engineering and a Master of Science in Operations Research. He holds a doctorate in Business Administration, conferred with distinction from the George Washington University. During his 12 years of active duty as a regular officer during the Cold War, Dr. London initially served as a naval aviator and carrier pilot while serving the U.S. Navy hunter-killer task forces arrayed against the Soviet Union's strategic nuclear submarine threat. Dr. London left active duty in 1971, joined the Naval Reserve, achieved the rank of Navy captain, and held command. After serving as CACI's president and chief executive officer for 23 years, he stepped out of the CEO role and became executive chairman in July 2007. He's an author. He's published the book Our Good Name and the book Character, the Ultimate Success Factor. He's earned numerous awards, too many to mention now, but know that Dr. London is in the Hall of Fame in many organizations, and the awards are all surrounding around leadership, character, and ethics. He also serves on the board of directors for the Navy Memorial and numerous other boards and foundations. He's also served as the director of the U.S. Naval Institute and the director and a member of the Executive Committee of the Armed Forces Communications Electronics Association. Please welcome Dr. Jack London. Our next panel member is in the center there is Liam Knott. He's an Army veteran, served in Iraq a couple times, and he's a field artillery person. And basically the way he would characterize it, he went from blowing things up to transition into construction, which you can do, wearing a helmet to a hard hat. So he joined this group, the API group, having had a smooth transition because it was a veteran-friendly organization. They sent him to leadership development, where he was able to hone his skills, and eventually he joined the Reliance Fire Protection organization, where he currently serves as the vice president. His duties involve strategic planning, business development, risk management, customer relations, personnel and leadership development, and business improvement initiatives. How about a round of applause for Liam? Our next panel member is Ginger Wierzbanowski. She currently serves as Vice President, Business Development at Northrop Grumman Information Systems. She had a very distinguished career in our United States Air Force in the intelligence field, and she did so well. Her name was out there with many senior executives, and so her transition was smooth because people knew who she was based on her leadership abilities, her character, and her professional performance. So after serving 20 years in the Air Force, she transitioned to the private sector, serving first at SAIC and then at Boeing. But then with the continued passion to serve our great nation, she left the private sector and rejoined the federal government, serving the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Cartwright, where she was responsible for legislative affairs, sort of different from intelligence, but because of her reputation, she served with General Cartwright and had the opportunity to work the Hill and to support the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Having completed that assignment, she went back to the private sector, where she currently serves as Vice President of Government Relations, Special Projects within the company's Government Relations Organization. Everyone, please, how about a warm welcome to Ginger Wierzbanowski. So the format of the panel, we'll start with some introductory perspectives, where each panelist will have the opportunity to provide about 5 minutes on their thoughts about leadership, ethics, character, and service. And then we'll transition into a period where I'll ask a few questions, and then as we have time, we'll entertain questions from the audience. So that's kind of the format. And so we'd like to start with the perspectives from Dr. Jack London.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you very much for the introduction. Very much appreciated. Then I want to thank Jim Roberts and the American Veterans Program for putting all this program together, and have been doing so for so many years. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to participate in up in the chair in days gone by with some of my colleagues and friends in the panel. So welcome indeed. It's wonderful to say hello to you, and hopefully you've gotten a whole lot out of the program over these couple of days here. But one of the things that I wanted to start off with was the question about what is the definition of leadership? And although I'm not here to sell my book, I do have a book out that Mel mentioned on the topic of character, the ultimate success factor. And it just so happens that a lot of the material in here refers to the anecdotes and experiences I had with the United States Navy, not the least of which was participation with the creation of this memorial foundation right here. This very building, I had a plank owner opportunity to work with none other than Admiral Burke and Admiral Tom Moore that were sort of the catalyst for getting this whole program put together right here as we sit and as we speak. So the definition of leadership, I'm going to quote out of my book, and it's from none other than Admiral Burke. I'm going to quote Admiral Burke, one of the founders of this institution. Leadership is an understanding of people and involving them to help do a job and get a job done right. It takes all of the good characteristics like integrity, dedication to purpose, selflessness, knowledge, skill, and implacability, as well as determination not to accept failure. So I thought that was a pretty good way to start off the notion of what leadership is all about. I had a few other thoughts I wanted to add as well. In my book, I also define leadership as very succinctly as a having vision, having courage, having commitment and integrity, and being able to support your people in accomplishment of those goals. So within the concept of leadership, I don't think you'll see any successful leaders that are promoting good purpose and good cause. There are leaders that of the other kind, of course. We've seen them around the planet. But the kind of things we're talking about have to do with integrity, ethics, value, and our values as a society and a culture, mutual respect and dignity, and decorum and how we deal with one another. So these are the attributes I think that, because why? Because these are the kind of people that exhibit those attributes are the ones you're going to respect and you're going to be willing to commit yourself to and be loyal to as well. So those are important considerations. What are some of the important aspects of leadership? Well, I'd like to submit to you and suggest to you that having faith in people. If you don't have faith in the people that you're working with and relating to, how are you going to be able to succeed? I also like to think there's two or three important things in leadership that I want to share with you, and you can take notes on this. Great leaders have the ability to have keen insights on empathy and empathy. They understand how to relate to people and what makes people motivates people. And they also have a faith in their people to empower them and delegate and give them opportunities to succeed and to be able to demonstrate their capabilities. And then there's one other factor I like to mention, and it has to do with the kinds of people. I sort of lump people in two categories. We have what I call the mission-oriented people and then the politically oriented people. And I'm not talking about donkeys and elephants. I'm talking about the politically oriented individuals. And the big difference is that you want people in your organization as a leader that support the mission, that are willing to commit to the objective of getting the things done and to collaborate with their colleagues. They're the kind that you want to build your organization around. The political people, you'll find them, and I've kind of lumped the world into two categories. Politically oriented people somehow are the ones that wind up, when something goes wrong, they find somebody else to blame. And when things go right, they always take credit for it. So those are people that you're going to have to watch out for, because the kind you really want to achieve the kinds of things that are of merit and of significance are the people that have the mission focus. One of the other things that was mentioned was discussing a person's character in regard to ethics and how important it is in the private sector in making a transition at some point. There's really a big difference. In the military, you have the UCMJ, Code of Military Justice. In the private sector, you have civil code. You have the laws of the land, if you will, and rules of commerce. But companies really, ladies and gentlemen, are looking for individuals who are reliable and do the right thing and understand the context for performance in the civil sector. And there's a big difference. And I want to reflect again, as my next point was the military veteran. The question was, is the military veteran, their notion of service, any different in the private sector? And I would say, yeah, there's difference, partly difference in any case, because in the military context, service certainly implies the potential commitment for a life or death experience in combat operations. You don't have that in the private sector, obviously, but the importance of commitment, doing your best, following rules, being dependable and reliable and loyal are all attributes that are very important in the military service, that are also extremely important in commercial enterprise, in the commercial sector, the private sector, including all kinds of area and government institutions, as well as for-profit organizations. Another question was, from a leadership standpoint, what are the 3 tips that I might want to share with you and leave with you? And I didn't take me long to conclude what I thought would be useful for you. The first is, for heaven's sakes, be yourself. Be yourself. But also be proud of your service and what you've accomplished. And be able to demonstrate your respect for your country and the fact that you have served. So as you go into the private sector, leaving service, becoming a, quote, veteran, that's my first tip. Be yourself, but be proud of what you've done and where you've been. My second suggestion is, and this is the way I look at recruiting. I have four elements that are crucial in my recruiting process. And it's a 4-finger formula. The most important attribute to demonstrate is your attitude. A positive, constructive, can-do, get-it-done type of attitude, and willing to work with people. This goes back to the mission idea I was talking about earlier. The second most important criteria is integrity. Integrity. Being able to demonstrate that you understand what the rules are all about, and you can comport with the policies of the organization, and you can be loyal to them. The third item is commitment. That's a big deal, being able to commit to an organization to demonstrate, again, your loyalty, and to the organization, to the project, to the contracts, if you're in the contract business. And my fourth item, and this will probably surprise you a little bit, is your expertise. You say, well, Jack, why in the world would expertise be the last out of the 4 criteria? And I'll tell you why very quickly. I have run many organizations of various sizes and projects and contracts and all the rest. And no matter what the competence level is, if the individual cannot work as part of a team to accomplish successfully the goals and objectives, it doesn't make any difference how smart they are. In fact, that might be a detriment because it confuses people and gets in the way. So the attitude is crucial, but the next most important thing then with integrity is I don't want anybody affiliated, no matter how wonderful their attitude is, if they can't demonstrate that they know how to participate in the proper way. And commitment obviously is the next important, because we have to have people in these organizations, commercial organizations, that know how to get in and participate. So that's my tip to you as you go out and are engaging in the marketplace, because that's the kind of things that people that are hiring people like me, when I'm out recruiting people, executives and others, these are the things I look for. Very simple, aren't they? I mean, I hope it makes a lot of sense to you. My last tip would be to, and this is really important as well, make it a point to look into organizations that have good image and good reputation, and that you sense have good character. People don't want to wind up in organizations where they have some degree of embarrassment or are not confident of the ethics and the character of the organization. So this idea of leadership and character relates at 2 levels. The first level is the individual level, and the second level is the organizational level. So as you go out and looking for opportunities out in the market space, remember to take a look at companies and organizations, or whatever the affiliation, where the reputation is positive and constructive, and you'd like to be a part of it and be proud of being a part of it. So those are some of the thoughts I had, Mel, to start off with.
Thank you, Dr. London, and please. And in this audience, we see many students and many junior officers and enlisted, and know that the words that you just heard are significant. They come from an individual who knows what he's talking about. It is truly something that is important, that we all ought to think about. It's a person of wisdom who has shared with us, so thank you. Liam.
Thank you, sir. Quick story to get started. I want to recognize my Aunt Marie and Uncle Bruce, who are here to support me today, but last August or so, I got a call from my aunt saying, "Oh, we had dinner with our friends Jim Roberts last night, and he wants to talk to you about all the things your company's doing about veterans hiring." So I'm thinking I live in Baltimore. I'm going to drive down to D.C., have lunch, tell them a little bit about the API Group, our parent company, and what we're doing at Reliance Fire Protection. Jim calls me up. We hit it off. We're both packing to go on vacation the next day, and he says, "I'm going to put you on a panel discussion with, at the time, it was Bob Hugan and Dr. Jack London." And I'm looking these guys up going, I'm not sure you got the right guy, but I'm happy to come down here and be a part of it. But to me, that's something about leadership, is that, you step into the limelight and you have an opportunity to speak to people and be a part of a great panel. I joked with a coworker of mine the other day when I saw the program, and I said, "Dave, look at the biographies. I didn't even make it to the margin." Well, you know what? It's probably a day that Dr. London and a day that Ginger didn't make it to the margin either. So it's great to be a part of this and to start building, your career at some point. I was a 5-year veteran of the United States Army, did 2 tours in Iraq, got out in 2007, joined a company called API Group about 8 years ago. Been a great opportunity for me to lead. That organization is very well run, so a lot of the questions about integrity and service and leadership characteristics, it was a very smooth transition for me. It was, they had a great onboarding process. They had a great process to bring me into the fold. Lo and behold, about 4 or 5 years into my career there, I was given the opportunity to lead one of their business units, and very, very proud and very honored to have been given that opportunity. When I think about leadership and I think about service and ethics and character, I'll echo what Dr. London said about you have to pick an opportunity, you have to pick an organization where those characteristics really stand out. But it's not easy. It's not always going to be easy. You're going to transition, for some of you who are maybe separating from the military, and for some of the younger group that will be moving into active military and in the future into maybe a civilian position. It's never going to be an easy transition. When I think about similarities and differences, I think about things like, code of conduct and people following orders. Sometimes, a soldier will do something just because you asked. You get into the business world, it's not always that way, and you find yourself debating and having to convince somebody. And for years, I used to want to just jump off a bridge when I heard the term buy-in. Why do I have to get you to buy in? It's your job. Do it. There's people who are dedicated to their duty, and there's no more dedicated individual than those that serve in our military. So you have to get used to challenges like that, and you have to learn how to adapt your own leadership style to the civilian environment. You can't just say, "because I told you so." You will fall right on your face and you will fail miserably. I think about, the organization that I'm a part of. We've got great leaders from top to bottom. Nationally, it's a huge organization. For some of you West Point cadets that are in the room, you might recognize the rugby stadium, the Lee and Penny Anderson Rugby Stadium. That is the chairman of our operation. He donated that. He is a distinguished graduate of the military academy. He is very committed to the veterans of this country. And when his time on this earth is gone, he wants to be remembered for that and that alone, that he served this nation's veterans. But it's a well-led organization. Our CEO is not a military person, and he is one of the finest leaders that I've ever been able to serve under. So we have to remember that, there's great leaders that come from all walks of life. I work directly for one of our chief operating officers. He was a union sprinkler fitter for 40 years. He is a great leader. It doesn't matter where somebody comes from. It doesn't matter if they went to the military academy, to Harvard, or if they went to, a local high school and made their way through the trades. There are great leaders that come from every walk of life, and it's very important to respect each and every one of them. A lot of similarities, though. Treat people with respect. It seems like a simple thing, but it's not always that simple for people to do. And if you treat people with respect, if you ask for their input, if you recognize that you're not the smartest person in the room, and most days that not smartest person in the room is me, but I'm surrounded by a lot of talent, and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who have spent a lot of time in the industry within that I work within. I think the hardest part for me in the transition is that, I spent 5 years. I got out as a captain. I was a company grade officer. Your soldiers, they see you working. When you're cold, they see that you're cold. When they're hot, they see that you're hot. It's a lot easier to lead from the front in a military environment than it is in a business environment. I've got, we're a smaller business within the API organization, but we've got 50 employees that work on our construction sites. You know, they don't see what I'm doing behind the scenes, and it's hard for them to understand what I have to do on a daily basis to try and make the business successful, you know, but I have to recognize that they're truly the ones that make us successful. So if I have some advice that would help you, you know, break down that barrier of transparency, it's be visible. You know, take every opportunity to be visible as the leader of the organization. Get out on project sites in the case of a construction company, you know, get down in the weeds, roll up your sleeves, you know, let people see you and communicate your message of what success looks like, you know, at the individual level. You cannot sit back and be an invisible figure and expect people to follow you and expect to have success within the organization. You know, service was another word that had come up, and when I think of service in the military versus service in the civilian world, there's plenty of people that are dedicated to their service who are civilians who never served a day in the United States military, and it's another thing that we need to recognize. You know, I'm the son of a nurse and a cop. You know, they served. They didn't serve in the U.S. military, but they served every day. They served their families. They served, you know, their communities. So think about those things and always respect those people that provide some kind of service. I worked for a company in North Dakota. We worked in the power industry. You know, we had a lot of Boilermakers that would get up in the middle of the night and race to a powerhouse that had an emergency shutdown to get the lights back running. You know, those guys, they had a mentality of a service provider. So when I think about things like service, you know, respect those that, you know, all have some commitment to their duty and some commitment to the profession that they've chosen. So I think we'll get to some of the other points later, and I figured if I couldn't dazzle you with any of my brilliance, I would at least be brief. So at this point, I will turn the microphone over.
Thank you very much, Liam. And oh, by the way, if you don't mind me sharing this, he's going to add to his resume real soon, Dad, in about 2 weeks. Okay, before we turn it over to Ginger, I have an ask. Okay, we've got this section over here, and I see many of our GW Valor students who are student veterans who have served their great nation, and they're currently students at George Washington University. My ask is that we have at least one question over here on this side. We're going to ask that we have at least one question in the center, and then one off to the far right. So be prepared. We don't care who it is, but that's the ask. Ginger.
Hi, everybody. I guess I'm live, right? Okay. So as far as the definition of leadership, for me, it's the ability to build collaborative teams, diverse teams, people that think differently. You bring them together, and you're able to guide them with vision. As far as key attributes of that, I think it's very important to have a mission. All of you have, or many of you have served or are learning how to serve and to be focused on a mission. So even in industry, we have to focus on what's at hand, whatever that mission is, and rally your people, especially when you have change ongoing in an organization. The second aspect I would say is transparency. And this does not happen enough, I would say, in corporate America. And I think we have a little bit more comfortable, we are a little bit more comfortable with it in the military, but transparency is essential. You need to tell your people what the goal is, what you're focused on, that you feel their pain, or that you understand where they're at. So they have that buy-in. They have that ability to understand that you are providing that top cover for them. And the last thing that I would say is really important for leadership is voice. And this is another area where sometimes when we're in the military, we're just told to, you know, go forth and get it done. But it's really important to take time to listen to your people, to let them have the voice, to let them have the leeway, the ability to stretch, get out there in front of you, and for them to make mistakes. Same thing in our defense industry and in our commercial industry. So for me, I would say those three things, mission, transparency, and voice are really important, and then wrap that all into how you lead collaborative teams.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ginger. And so several of us in the room have served or currently serving in the military. And so when you think about public service or military service, one often thinks about character and ethics being important. So when you transition to the private sector, the profit motive is important, right? Satisfying shareholders, et cetera. So my question to any of our panelists is, when you make that transition from public service or military service, why is character, why is ethics important on the private sector if all I have to worry about is the top line or the bottom line? Anyone want to take that one?
Well, I can give it a shot since I live with it every day. The point, Mel, is that there's a fiduciary obligation in corporate America to its shareholders, and you mentioned that, to do the best for the shareholders. What I've learned, and what I'll pass along to you, is that the notion of being successful in the commercial arena is very much tied to the kind of people you have and how you motivate your people. And I've found that over the 50-some-odd years of our institution, I've been affiliated with CACI International for 43 years, but I picked up the notion early that success was very much tied to the kind of people I had, and the better the people I had in terms of their, not only their competence, but also their commitment to doing the right thing. We have very few problems in our company. We have been in business 54 years, and I can count on three fingers in 54 years of significant issues in terms of contract delivery or some kind of public image issue. I submit to you that's a pretty good record. And how does that come about? That comes about because we pay attention and we promote the idea of integrity and character and doing the right thing. And there's no wink-wink when it comes to our financial statements about what's correct and what isn't. I gave a talk, just one more anecdote here. I gave a talk Wednesday night, a couple of days ago, out at George Mason University, 188 people, students mostly attending, but also guests. And the dean of the school there told me after my presentation, you know, you didn't know this, Jack, but she's an accounting focused, is her profession, with years with the IRS. And she told me that for the last 12 years, I've been using the financial statements of CACI International as filed at the SEC because they're clean, straightforward, and it's easy for me to teach my students about how to put packages together. And I thought, I couldn't believe she was telling me this. But that's a perfect indication of what I'm talking about when you have people that'll do the right thing. You actually wind up in a situation where you really don't worry about it when you have the right folks. It's amazing how that works for you. So you might want to bear that in mind, not only in the commercial sector, but in your organization and military establishment as well.
Thank you, Dr. London. Liam or Ginger?
So I would say that it's absolutely not different at all between industry and defense as far as ethics. It's absolute table stakes in our industry. We have to work with the federal government, and so it's essential that we act and behave ethically. I would say that there are two aspects of ethical leadership. The first is you have to act ethically, but you have to lead ethically. You have to set the example. And when you work with people and when you walk into a room, there is no gray area, as I think all of you know. It's very black and white. And once you slip into that gray, it's a very slippery slope. If you make a decision or something's questionable or someone questions your character, it's very, the next thing you know, that your entire foundation of your organization can crumble. So I would say there really isn't any difference because it's table stakes. The one thing that I will say, and I know many people join Northrop because of its ethical nature, but the one thing that surprised me when I joined Northrop Grumman from being in the military and being in the defense industry was that we talked about ethics so much. And I think most of you might think, I don't know, we lived it every day. We kind of accepted it. It became part of the fabric of who you are. And when I walked into the door at Northrop, every day there was either some sort of communication that had to do with ethical behavior. And that surprised me because I'd always lived that inside of the military. So to have that reminder was quite surprising. So I would say those two things are really important, but you really can't have any gray area. It will crumble an organization. And for us, if we act unethically or we do something, as you mentioned, with your 3 in the 50 plus years, you could be debarred from working with the federal government. So it's exceptionally important for us too.
So I just want to add that what you've just heard is that these organizations are led by people. There's one person that's in charge of the organization. The character of that leader will help to define the values at that organization, whether they believe in ethics, whether they believe in doing the right things. And so these are examples of organizations who are led by leaders who have a sound understanding of doing the right thing. So I wanted to ask Liam, one of the things that you said earlier was that it was easier to lead in the military. And so the question is, how do you get things done in the private sector?
Well, until this year, people above me probably would have said I did, and we were having a tough time. So we've got things turned around, and we're pretty happy about that. But I shouldn't. It was never easy to lead in the military, but there was a system for it. And what I've found is there's a lot more adaptation of leadership style in the civilian world. You really have to play to a lot of different personalities, and it can be a challenge. You have people that are, it's no different than any walk of life, but you have people that might be prima donnas, you have people that might just be, grinders, but you need to learn how to adapt your leadership style to the different people that you lead. And it's never a one size fits all. Somebody's not going to pick up the Ranger handbook and flip to, a section on leadership and say, well, now I'm the platoon sergeant, so I have to do these things. Not that it's that simple in the military either, but it is you have such a wide variety of people from all walks of life, and you always have to be adapting to, how to deliver the message and how to get the most out of each person.
Thank you. So before we go to the questions of the audience, I wanted to ask, the big three, the ideas that you want to leave the audience with respect to leadership, ethics, character, and service. And so I'll shift to Ginger, if that's okay, on your 3 messages.
Well, one I think Liam just hit, and I guess my experience has been you have to acknowledge when you take off that uniform that you're no longer the sergeant major, you're no longer the admiral, you're no longer the colonel. You have to kind of hit the ground running and work hard to pull people in around you. And it's not just the guy arrives, he's, the CEO of a submarine. You have to get there and really learn how to engage with people. So I think that's an important factor, and probably one of the difficult things when you do transition is to see what your role is and how you pull people into your sphere. I hear a lot of people talking about networking. So one of the top tips is networking, but I'm going to put a little twist on that networking. I think it's a little overused. Networking is important, but it has to have meaning. You have to think about all of the people that are in your organization and how you touch them. So if there's a finance person, if there's a contracts person, understand their job, get to know them, broaden your network. And then when you leave work for that day and you're having other opportunities to network, whether it's through a foundation or through volunteering or through touching someone's life in some sort of activity, use all of those opportunities to network and to find more about their lives, and you can bring all of that back to your work. It's all going to build you up. So it's not just I go to a cocktail party and I network and I give people my card. It's really getting out there and networking in your own building. We have ERGs, and we have these opportunities to have it's like speed dating, but you get to know everybody in your area. And I think things like that are really important, and the follow-up after that. go meet with audit because it's important. So I would say that's one of my tips. The most successful people in the military and in business are ones that have that absolutely extended network. And then I think that back to that ethics discussion, always take the high road. It's very easy, and you'll see throughout your lives that there'll be opportunities to take a different path, but don't do it. Always take the high road and make sure that you're kind in your interactions. It's very easy not to be, but do take that high road.
I guess if I had a big three, enjoy what you do. Have a good time at it, regardless of the circumstances. Especially for those of you maybe about to embark on a junior military officer career and getting your start. You're going to find yourself in tough circumstances, and it's all about how you respond to it, because people are going to be looking to you to be that rock. And, sometimes some inappropriate humor and, seemingly not the right time goes a long way to get somebody's attitude back. But, enjoy what you do. And if you're having a good time at it, people are going to rise to the occasion. They're going to be successful with you. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I'm blessed to be surrounded with a lot of them. I don't have all the answers, but you know what? I can walk down the hall and find out. And don't be afraid to say that I don't have the answer, but you know what? I'll get right back to you. You're never going to know everything, and if you can surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are and more talented than you are, the organization's going to be successful. And the last one, it's all about balance. Make sure you spend some time doing the things that you enjoy, that you're not just, so wrapped up in your work that you forget family, or that you're, not making the time for the things that are important to you. Make sure that you find the balance in everything that you do.
Thank you. Dr. Lund?
I don't know what I'm left with all that wonderful advice.
Just wanted to offer.
That is just, you've gotten some fabulous advice here about how you present your life and the values you want to create and the ambitions you have, making sure you live a full life with your family and all the rest. And I just go back to some of the things I mentioned earlier, which I think are still of importance, and that is make sure you, when you go into your next role, wherever it is, make sure that you convey how proud of what you've done and where you are and what you want to contribute. People are looking for employers, military organizations are looking for people to contribute. They're looking for value-add people. So you've got to think in terms of being a value-add person. I mentioned the things that I look for, and I've recruited a significant number of executives and lots of technical project folks, and I always look for attitude. I can't build an organization with people that can't work together. It's that simple. You say, Jack, gee, that sounds like that ought to be a slam dunk. No, it is not. Finding people that can work together successfully and collaboratively and get the job done in an efficient and cost-effective way is a big deal. And it's the difference between success and failure in many of the things that you will embark upon, including military operations, I might add. The last thing that I mentioned, and I'll repeat myself on top of the very wonderful advice from my colleagues here, is that make sure that you, if you have the opportunity, look for those organizations you want to be proud of being a part of. That's a big deal. And don't overlook that as you talk to your colleagues, or you're looking for opportunities, or looking for an employment, or looking for reassignment. Remember, reputation and image is a big deal, and it doesn't happen overnight. And by the way, it can be crushed in an instant. You can ruin a reputation of an organization or individual. And my takeaway for you is to remember that good character is a quality we can all own that no one can ever take from us.
Thank you, sir. Okay, as promised, off to the left. Question.
Hello, my name is Yannick Baptiste. As mentioned, I am one of the Veterans and Valor students at the George Washington University. My background, I'm an E5 with 6 years in the military. I came from active duty. I pulled out in 2013, started at George Washington University. I'm now the president of the the student-led organization. Obviously, Mel represents the GW administration side of it. So one of the questions I have with you, and my experience as well at GW, is I get a lot of employers that contact me, and they're interested in employing our veterans once they graduate. And one of those, and hopefully, I don't know if anybody's from JP Morgan Chase, but I'll say that because it's important to know, and I think it's something that you guys can obviously attest to as well, is the difference between the officer perspective and the enlisted perspective. And to give you the example, is one of the things that they challenged us with is they had a program for executive leadership, for the graduate students and people that had that officer background. But talking about what you guys were mentioning, these people that are in the weeds, these people that were transparent, oftentimes that could be these junior NCO leaders as well. The offer for them, however, was, we have teller positions in some of our branches. So what can we do? Because oftentimes you have leaders that, let's say we have a lot of future and current junior officers as well that, and I think a lot of people can attest to, are put into that leadership position automatically. They're afforded that opportunity, and some fail and some are successful. But the people that oftentimes need the most help are those people that aren't afforded that opportunity right away or aren't provided those leadership courses. So I guess to kind of help when we're talking about the transition for that particular sector and those individuals.
I think it's a matter of kind of drilling into those companies a little more too. Maybe you have to broaden the horizon of looking for, maybe different organizations that have broader opportunities than the teller position and things like that. I can only speak to, what we do at API, but we came up with what they call the Veterans Rotational Program. We did start exactly like you said with programs for junior military officers, and after that, caught some traction and gained some ground. Somebody was smart enough to say, you know what, we need to open this up and broaden it a little more and create opportunities for the NCOs and for people like yourself. So, I wish I had the magic bullet to answer your question, but there are organizations out there that have recognized that and do see the value to broadening their horizons. So, I hope that you can find something like that, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you afterward and give you my card and do anything I could to assist as well.
I can speak to it a little bit, just to follow up. We have at CACI International a very active recruiting program for veterans and disabled veterans, and it's run by a retired lieutenant, retired Marine Corps colonel. The previous executive that ran that was one of the Master Chief Petty Officers of the Navy, Joe Campa, the MCPON of a couple 10 years ago. We focus on it with great intensity. It's a big deal for us, partly because I want it to be, but also it is the right thing for us to be doing in our industry as well. We have about, something like 700 or 800 of our employees. We have about 16,000 that have been employed by our organization from a disability standpoint. We have many, many more. We probably have 40% of our people are veterans of one sort or another. I'm a veteran too, but we focus on it. So again, it's finding these organizations that where their objectives fit and their image and reputation fit what you're looking for. We have been recognized by the President of the United States, President Obama, as being one of the leading companies for our size, proportional, for our very aggressive and recognized veterans recruiting program. So you can look around; they're around, and you just have to kind of make an effort at it.
I'll add a couple things. In Northrop, about 1/3 of our population is veteran. I would say there are opportunities across the board, but the one thing that I think each of you, when you go out to look for jobs, has to do is look at ways to translate your experience into industry vocab. We don't do that very well. We don't often realize how much we have to offer. So when I know at least at Northrop Grumman, when we go to a job fair and we're at a military base, we're getting better and better. We're sending the right kinds of people, sometimes former vets, to help. and we'll sit down, we have mentor-protege relationships, and we sit down and look at your resume and go, you know, that's too much military jargon. What can you really do? Oh, you're a loggy. Oh, well, this is what you can do in our company. So I think it's looking for companies that have that, and I think that'll help you. But I do think they're out there, but it's also how you sell and market yourself. And so pairing with a company that is open-minded. I know we were talking just before the panel about Amazon. Amazon really sees the strength and the leadership potential in military, in military vets. And they reach in and they have these giant centers all around that have thousands of people in a really, you know, very high demand or very rough work schedule. And they have everything from, you know, E3s, you name it, up actually managing these giant centers. So I think you have to find the right fit. You have to find a company you can believe in, but you also have to look at how you market yourself and understand what you have to offer. I think there's a lot. But
So every one of us on this earth at some point had a mother. We're all human. And from a leadership standpoint, the organizations that truly value diversity and inclusion of each human are the ones who will attract the best people. And so whether you're an officer, enlisted, whether you served in the military as a veteran or not, the top organizations are going to be the ones who are led by people who allow opportunities for each human, each individual to realize their full potential. Leaders must be in the opportunity business, and whether you were an E1 or whether you were an officer, you know, what's your potential? Help that person to realize that potential. So that's an important aspect. And these leaders are ones who have lived that dream and they fully understand it. Next question.
Ma'am, Cadet Brown from West Point. We've already acknowledged that the defense industry and the military both require ethical, effective leadership. But Dwight D. Eisenhower famously said and warned against the rise of the military-industrial complex. On that note, what are the hazards you've seen of senior military officials transitioning to senior positions at defense contractors?
Well, I guess I could talk a little bit to that. There's certainly in certain categories they have waiting periods or cooling off periods for executives that have been closely affiliated with certain kinds of contracts and programs and budgets and so on. But I'll just go back and reflect on what we've said before. The notion of integrity and character and ethics is not branded by being in the military or not in the military. It's an attribute, it's a human attribute, and Mel certainly reflected on it in his comments just a moment ago. These are individual attributes that when aggregated present the character of the organization itself. So I have never been terribly worried about the military-industrial complex, and even though General Eisenhower had his comments about cautioning of it, and that's because if you stop and think about it, and you are a pilot like I was once upon a time, and you crawl into an aircraft on a pitching deck on a carrier. In the dark of night with rain going on and so forth, and you sit there thinking, now, I'm in a machine that was built by a bunch of civilians on a contract, for God's sake. I sure as hope as hell that they were committed to doing the right thing, to believing in quality control and following the procedures of their engineering discipline to make sure this thing works. So you got to really kind of understand how all this works. It's the great American people that really constitute what is the United States military, either while they're in service or in their support afterwards. So I always reflect on the integrity of people and organizations, and I've never really worried about that interface issue.
all right, and I think we have procedures in place to prevent that. But you're right, it's the people that have to enforce it. But there is an amazing partnership. My husband and I, his brothers, my brother-in-law, all of us served full military careers. My husband was an F-16 pilot. He flew, and he had to rely on the things that, you know, Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or someone else bought. When you go to a flight line in our company, when you go to where they're actually pushing the jets out the door, there is so much pride. It's a partnership. So I know he warned about it, and I understand that, and I think we all need to be vigilant. I would completely agree. But it is a really important partnership, because ultimately they need to understand what you need to fight our future wars. And we need, you know, as far as, you know, our companies need to know that, and you need to know we're standing behind you as, you know, either former veterans or engineers or people that really care about national security. They don't enter this, you know, the defense industrial complex because they don't care. They do it because they really care about what you're doing.
We'd like to thank the American Veterans Center, the Navy Memorial, our sponsors, and most importantly, our panel members. It's been an honor. Thank you very much. How about a round of applause?